Virginia Satir exposes the hidden truth about toxic families and why you must break free right now when love hurts in silence. You've heard it all your life. Family is everything. It's a phrase so often repeated that we start to believe it's law, an unbreakable truth. But what happens when that very family, the people meant to love, protect, and support you, becomes the source of your deepest wounds? What happens when the place that should have felt like home feels more like a trap? Let's be honest, not every home is a safe place. Some homes are battlegrounds. Some families pass down pain like a family recipe, and some children grow up believing that love must come with fear, silence, or sacrifice. This video is not about blaming or creating enemies within your own bloodline. It's about telling the truth that nobody wants to say out loud. Family can be a source of trauma, and you don't have to carry that pain forever. The lie we learn early. Family means loyalty, no matter what. We're taught that walking away from a family member, even one who hurts us, is betrayal. We're told to forgive endlessly, to tolerate abuse in the name of respect, to keep silent because airing dirty laundry is shameful. But here's the hard truth. Loyalty without boundaries is self-betrayal. Virginia Satir, a pioneer in family therapy, once said, "We must not allow the roles we played as children to become our identities as adults." Many of us were the peacekeepers, the quiet ones, the invisible ones, the caretakers. We learned that keeping the family together required sacrificing parts of ourselves. But the child who stayed quiet to survive doesn't have to remain silent as an adult. You don't have to keep shrinking to make others comfortable. You don't have to carry the weight of a toxic system just because you were born into it. What love should never feel like. Love should never feel like fear. Love should never make you feel like a burden. Love should never make you question your worth. If you grew up in a family where love was inconsistent, where affection depended on your behavior, your silence, or your obedience, then you were taught conditional love. And conditional love is not love. It's control dressed up as care. You may have spent your whole life trying to earn love, trying to be good enough, trying not to upset anyone, trying to make peace. But deep down, you may have realized, no matter how hard you tried, it was never enough. That's because the problem was never you. It was the environment you were trying to survive in. The silent epidemic, emotionally unsafe families. Some wounds are invisible. They don't leave bruises on your skin, but they show up in your relationships, your self-worth, your anxiety, your fear of speaking up. When a child grows up in a home where their feelings aren't heard, where conflict is constant, or where love is used as a weapon, that child learns to internalize the pain. They believe they are the problem, that if they could just behave better, speak less, be quieter, smile more, then maybe, just maybe, they'd finally be loved the way they deserve. But here's the truth. You never had to earn love. You deserved it all along. The problem wasn't you. It was the broken system around you, the myth of the perfect family. On the outside, some families look perfect. Nice pictures, respectable careers, holiday gatherings, smiles at church. But behind closed doors, silence, control, criticism, favoritism, emotional manipulation. And the worst part? You were told not to talk about it. You were told, don't be dramatic, don't make things worse, don't embarrass the family. So you kept it all inside until the pain began to live in your body. Virginia Satir believed that true healing begins when we name what's really happening. And that's what this video dares to do. You are not alone, and you're not weak for feeling hurt. If you're watching this and recognizing your own family in these words, know this: you are not alone. You are not broken. You are not being ungrateful for feeling what you feel. Too many adults carry the emotional weight of childhood pain because no one ever gave them permission to say, "This hurt me. I didn't feel loved. I needed more." And here's your permission now. You don't owe anyone a lifetime of silence. Yes, family can be complicated, but silence isn't loyalty. Enduring pain in the name of love isn't noble. It's harmful. You have the right to speak. You have the right to set boundaries. You have the right to step away. You have the right to protect your peace, even if it means disappointing people who never protected you. Healing begins when you stop pretending. Stop pretending it didn't hurt. Stop pretending it was normal. Stop pretending that being treated badly by people who loved you is just part of life. It's not. It's trauma. And naming it is not weakness. It's the first step toward freedom. Virginia Satir taught us that transformation happens when we dare to see things as they really are. Only then can we choose who we want to become, beyond the roles we were forced to play. Closing message: you don't have to carry this forever. You didn't choose your family. You didn't choose the patterns you were born into. but you can choose to heal. You can choose to let go of the guilt, the shame, and the silence. You can choose to break the cycle so the next version of you lives lighter, freer, and truer. Remember, family is supposed to be your starting place, not your cage. You have permission to heal. You have permission to outgrow their pain. And most of all, you have permission to live in peace, even if it means loving some people from a distance. Because family is not everything. Health is, and you don't have to carry their pain forever. The body speaks, what the family keeps silent. There's a truth that very few people talk about, but your body already knows it. When emotions are silenced, the body becomes the voice. If you grew up in a home where it wasn't safe to speak your truth, where feelings were dismissed, minimized, or ridiculed, then your body likely picked up the weight of every unshed tear, every swallowed word, every unspoken scream. The body never forgets you, might not remember every detail of your childhood, but your nervous system does, your heart does, your gut does, your posture, your breathing, your tension, they all carry the story. Virginia Satir taught that when communication is cut off, the human spirit begins to suffocate. She believed that human beings are wired for emotional connection. When that connection is broken, especially in childhood, it doesn't just hurt emotionally, it hurts physically. Many of us are living with symptoms we can't explain: constant anxiety, tightness in the chest, digestive issues, fatigue that no amount of rest fixes, insomnia, panic attacks, a general feeling of not being safe, even in our own skin. These aren't just random ailments. They are the body's way of telling the truth that the family never allowed you to say. Emotional suppression becomes physical suppression when you couldn't cry without being mocked, when you couldn't get angry without being punished, when you couldn't express fear without being shamed. You learned to turn everything inward. You didn't stop feeling, you just stopped showing. You buried it all deep inside, and the body became the container for pain that had nowhere else to go. The child who wasn't allowed to express emotion becomes the adult who flinches when someone raises their voice, who overthinks every decision, who fears being too much, who apologizes for existing. The inner war between silence and survival. Many of us were told, directly or indirectly, that survival meant silence. Keep the peace, don't rock the boat, be the good child. So we learned to smile through pain, to laugh when we wanted to cry, to say I'm fine when we were falling apart. But there's a cost. The human body is not designed to carry long-term emotional suppression. What you don't express emotionally, the body expresses physically. Back pain becomes repressed anger. Stomach issues become bottled up anxiety. Chronic illness becomes the language of grief that was never allowed to be spoken. I don't know why I'm like this. Yes, you do. Maybe you've caught yourself thinking, why am I always so tense? Why do I feel so anxious for no reason? Why do I panic in normal situations? Why does my body feel like it's on alert all the time? And the answer is because your nervous system learned that the world isn't safe, and the world that taught it that was your home. Virginia Satir said, life is not what it's supposed to be, it's what it is. The way you cope with it is what makes the difference. So let's be clear, your body is not betraying you, it's protecting you. It adapted to an environment where you had to stay small to stay safe. But the coping mechanisms that kept you alive as a child may now be keeping you stuck as an adult. Breaking the silence, gently and compassionately. Healing doesn't mean blaming. It doesn't mean reliving every painful memory. It means slowly learning how to tell the truth again, first to yourself, and then maybe one day to others. It means letting your body exhale after years of holding its breath. It means recognizing the signs of stress not as weakness, but as messages from the younger you who wasn't allowed to speak. You don't need to force yourself to forgive or forget. You just need to start listening to your body, your feelings, your truth. And your truth might be this: I was never allowed to feel. I had to grow up too fast. I don't feel safe around people who say they love me. That is a truth worth honoring. Your body is not the enemy, it's your witness. The anxiety, the tightness, the exhaustion, they're not flaws, they're clues. They're reminders that you lived through something that required you to adapt. Virginia Satir believed that every person has the inner resources to grow, change, and heal. And your body is part of that wisdom. It's been waiting, sometimes for decades, for you to finally say, it wasn't okay, and I'm ready to heal. Final message: your pain deserves a voice. You don't have to keep suppressing to belong. You don't have to get sick to be heard. You don't have to carry emotional silence in your bones. Start with a breath, then a sentence, then a truth. I was hurt. It wasn't fair. I deserve peace. Your healing begins when you listen, not just to your memories, but to your body, because your body has been speaking all along, and now it's time to answer. The root of the cycle, the pain that came before you. We often ask ourselves, why did my parents treat me this way? Why didn't they love me the way I needed? Why couldn't they protect me, support me, or even see me? But what if the answer isn't found in your story? What if it begins in theirs? You inherited more than genes. You inherited pain. Virginia Satir often said, "We are all survivors of survivors." That means before you were hurt, they were hurt. Before you felt neglected, they were neglected. Before you were silenced, they were silenced too. The emotional patterns you see in your family didn't start with you. They are the echoes of generations who were never taught how to feel, how to love, how to listen, how to be safe inside their own hearts. Your mother may have never been mothered. Your father may have never been allowed to cry. And so, when it came time to raise you, they handed down what they knew. Not because it was right, but because it was all they had. The cycle of unconscious pain. This is how generational pain works. A child is born into chaos. That child adapts, disconnects from their feelings, and grows into an adult. Then, without realizing it, they raise another child in the same emotional silence they once suffered. And the pattern continues. Unless someone wakes up, you might be that someone. You may be the one who says, "This stops with me. I will not pass this pain forward. I will face what no one before me had the courage to face." The misunderstood child becomes the awake adult. You may have grown up feeling like the outsider in your family. Too sensitive, too different, too intense, too emotional. But what if those traits weren't flaws? What if they were your gifts? The very signs that you were awake in a system built on emotional numbness. The child who questioned the rules, who felt deeply, who noticed everything. That child grew into the adult who is now searching for truth. And here's something Virginia Satir believed deeply. The greatest gift you can give your family is your own healing. Because when you heal, you change the future. You change what love looks like. You change what children grow up believing is normal. Compassion, without carrying the burden. Understanding that your parents were also wounded doesn't mean you have to excuse their harm. It means you begin to see them not as villains, but as human beings stuck in their own survival mode. You can feel compassion without carrying their pain. You can acknowledge their suffering without abandoning your own. You don't need to rescue them. You don't need to fix what they refuse to face. You don't need to shrink yourself just to keep the illusion of peace. You are not betraying them by healing. This is one of the most painful beliefs to break, that healing is disloyal, that telling the truth is betrayal, that seeing your family clearly is an act of rebellion. It's not. It's an act of love. Love for your own soul. Love for the future. Love for the child you once were, who deserved better. Virginia Satir believed in the power of becoming fully alive. And to become fully alive, you must first be fully honest. What they couldn't give you. Maybe they couldn't hold your feelings because no one ever held theirs. Maybe they couldn't listen because they were never heard. Maybe they taught you to be silent because that's how they survived. That's not your fault, and it's not your job to fix. But it is your right to choose something different, to become the parent you needed, to create the safety they never knew how to provide. You are the turning point. You are not just a continuation of your bloodline. You are the turning point. You are the one who feels the pain and refuses to pass it on. You are the one who dares to ask, what if love could look different? What if I don't have to keep repeating what hurt me? What if I get to heal, even if they never did? Closing message. You were chosen to break the pattern. You weren't cursed. You were chosen, not to suffer forever, but to see, to feel, to transform. You are the cycle breaker, the one who carries wisdom instead of wounds, the one who walks forward with open eyes, even if it hurts. And as Virginia Satir believed, you are not alone in this journey. Inside you lives everything you need to heal, even if they didn't, because what came before you may explain your pain, but it does not define your future. Conditional love, when you have to earn the right to be loved, love. It's supposed to be the safest thing in the world, but for many of us, love didn't come freely. It came with strings, with rules, with silence, with conditions. And so we learned something devastating at a very young age. Love must be earned. Be good or you'll lose it. If you grew up in a home where affection only came when you behaved, where praise was rare and criticism was constant, where love was used as a reward, not a foundation, then you weren't really loved. You were managed. And as a child, you didn't know the difference. You just knew, if I make them proud, I'll feel safe. If I stay quiet, I'll be accepted. If I take care of everyone else, maybe someone will finally take care of me. Virginia Satir spoke deeply about how children adapt their identity in order to survive family systems. And in many families, survival means shrinking, the hidden cost of conditional love. Conditional love teaches you that your worth is performance-based. It trains you to seek approval instead of connection. It tells you, you're lovable when you succeed. You're lovable when you don't complain. You're lovable when you hide your needs. But what happens when you stop performing? What happens when you say no, when you make a mistake, when you finally express what you need? Suddenly, the love disappears. Not because you changed, but because they never loved the real you. They loved the version of you that served them. From child to adult, the pattern follows you. If you were taught that love is earned, then you probably carried that belief into adulthood. You may work too hard to prove yourself, stay in toxic relationships because at least someone loves me, feel terrified of disappointing others, over-apologize even when you've done nothing wrong, feel empty without external validation. This is not because you're broken. It's because you learned love with conditions, and now your nervous system is stuck in that loop. Virginia Satir believed that many adults are still carrying the emotional survival tactics of their childhood. And until we challenge those beliefs, we keep reliving them again and again. The pain of never feeling enough. Conditional love sends a message: you're not enough as you are, so you overcompensate, you overgive, you overthink, you become everything for everyone, and lose yourself in the process. And no matter how much you do, how hard you try, or how perfect you seem, there's always that voice inside whispering, if they really knew me, they'd leave. If I stop trying, I'll be alone. If I say how I feel, they'll reject me. That voice isn't you. It's the echo of a childhood that told you love was fragile and conditional. You are not a transaction. Love should not be something you barter for. It is not a paycheck you earn after emotional labor. It is not something you lose the moment you make a mistake. True love, the kind you deserved all along, says, I see you, I hear you, I accept you. Not just when you're strong, not just when you're quiet, not just when you're useful, but even when you're messy, emotional, human, healing the conditional love wound. Virginia Satir believed in reconnecting with the self, learning to love and accept all parts of who we are, especially the ones we were taught to hide. That healing starts with small truths. I am enough, even when I rest. I am worthy, even when I say no. I don't have to earn love by suffering. My needs matter too. Being myself is not a problem to fix. You don't have to be perfect to be loved. You don't have to be silent to be safe. You don't have to prove your worth every day just to be seen. Letting go of the performance. Take a deep breath. You've performed long enough. You've been the peacekeeper, the fixer, the one who always smiles. And maybe now it's time to be something else. Real. The child in you deserves to know that love doesn't have to hurt. The adult in you deserves to build relationships where your presence is enough. It won't happen overnight. But every time you choose authenticity over performance, you're healing. Every time you say, this is who I am and I matter, you're breaking the chains. Closing message: you don't have to earn it anymore. Love is not a prize you win by disappearing. It's not something you unlock by being less of yourself. You are not here to earn love. You are here to receive it freely, fully, without fear. The version of you that had to work for affection, that was survival. But now, you are free to love without conditions, starting with yourself, blaming the different one, when you become the family's problem. In every toxic family system, there's one person who starts to see. They question what others accept. They feel what others deny. They speak what no one else dares to say. And then something strange happens. That person becomes the problem, the role no one volunteers for, the scapegoat. In a family that avoids truth, silence becomes survival. But when someone breaks that silence, the system reacts, fast and fiercely. You may have been called dramatic, too sensitive, difficult, ungrateful, even crazy. Why? Because you refused to keep playing along. Because you dared to ask, why does no one talk about this? Because you stopped pretending everything was fine. And in a dysfunctional family, authenticity feels like a threat. Virginia Satir understood this well. She said, the problem is not the problem. How people cope is the problem. And often, a family copes by blaming you, the one who sees too much, feels too deeply, and asks for change. You were never the problem, you were the mirror. When a toxic system can't face its own dysfunction, it finds someone to blame, someone to absorb the tension, carry the guilt, and distract from the truth. That person becomes the scapegoat. And the scapegoat isn't the weakest link, they're the strongest. The one who refuses to pretend, the one who starts asking questions, the one who breaks the unspoken rule, don't disrupt the illusion. And because your presence reveals what others want to ignore, they call you the issue. But let's be clear, you were the mirror, and mirrors are not the problem. They just show what's already there. Being the different one isn't a flaw, it's a calling. Maybe you always felt like you didn't belong in your own family. Your values didn't match. Your voice wasn't heard. Your emotions weren't welcome. Your truth made others uncomfortable. But what if all of that wasn't failure, but clarity? What if you were never meant to fit into a broken mold? What if being different was exactly what was needed to break the cycle? Virginia Satir believed that families often assign roles to survive. Some are the golden child, some are the lost child, some are the mascot, and some, like you, become the truth teller. And truth tellers rarely get thanked. They get rejected. Why they needed you to be the problem. By making you the problem, the family avoids looking at itself. They don't have to question their behavior. They don't have to feel guilt. They don't have to change. If you are the issue, then they stay comfortable. It's painful, but it's also revealing. Because the moment you stop trying to fix yourself to fit in, you start seeing the truth. You weren't broken. You were breaking free. Rejection as a sign of awakening. It hurts to be the one who's pushed away. It hurts when your family treats your healing as betrayal. It hurts when being healthy means being alone. But sometimes that rejection is confirmation. Confirmation that you're stepping into truth. Confirmation that you no longer accept dysfunction as normal. Confirmation that you're no longer willing to play small just to be accepted. Virginia Satir said, "Once a human being has arrived on this earth, communication is the largest single factor determining what kinds of relationships he makes with others and what happens to him in the world. When communication is built on control, fear, and silence, choosing to speak becomes revolutionary, and you chose to speak. The loneliness of the cycle breaker. Yes, it's lonely. Yes, it's unfair. Yes, sometimes you wish you could just go back and play along, but you can't unsee the truth, and you were never meant to. There is grief in losing the version of family you hoped for. There is sadness in realizing they may never see you for who you are. But there is freedom too, because now you can stop seeking approval from people who only loved the version of you that made them feel comfortable. You were not meant to stay small. You were not born to carry your family's emotional baggage. You were not created to be a scapegoat, a peacekeeper, or a punching bag. You were born to be whole, to live in truth, to build a life rooted in authenticity and freedom. The more you heal, the more you will feel peace where there was once panic. And the more you choose yourself, the louder the old system may scream. Let it. That's just the sound of a cycle breaking. Closing message. Your difference is your gift. You were never too much. You were never too sensitive. You were never the problem. You were the spark, the truth, the one brave enough to see clearly and love yourself anyway. Being the different one in a toxic family isn't easy, but it is sacred. You are not here to carry the pain. You are here to transform it, and you're already doing it. The adult, still waiting for their parents' approval. You may be grown now. You may have a career, a home, a life that looks put together on the outside. But deep down, a quiet part of you is still waiting for that one moment, that one phrase, that one look that says, "I see you, I'm proud of you, you did good." The childhood longing that never left. No matter how far you've come, the child inside you still hopes that one day your mother will apologize, that your father will finally say he's proud, that someone will acknowledge your pain, not dismiss it, not minimize it, not ignore it. Virginia Satir taught that we all carry our inner child into adulthood, and that child never stops hoping for what they needed most, to be loved just as they were. But what happens when that recognition never comes? What happens when the people who should have cherished you simply don't know how? The invisible grief no one talks about. This is a kind of grief no one warns you about. Not the loss of someone who's gone, but the ache of someone who's still here. someone who's alive but emotionally unavailable, someone who sees your accomplishments but not your heart, someone who speaks to you but never really hears you. And so you keep trying. Maybe if I work harder, maybe if I stay quiet, maybe if I fix myself, they'll finally love me the way I needed all along. But that moment never comes, and the more you chase it, the emptier you feel. When love is withheld as a form of control, sometimes parents withhold affection not out of malice, but out of their own wounds. They were taught that love is discipline, not tenderness, that praise makes you weak, that emotions are problems, not signals. And so you grew up in an emotional drought, starved for validation. They may have fed you, clothed you, paid for things, but they never looked you in the eyes and said, I love who you are, not what you do, not how you behave, not how well you hide your pain, but who you are. Virginia Satir believed that our deepest wounds often come from the disconnection between who we truly are and who we were allowed to be. The trap of waiting. The longer you wait for them to change, the longer you stay trapped in the past. You become the adult who still feels like a child when you walk into your parents' house. Your voice changes. You shrink. You doubt yourself. You scan their face for approval and panic at signs of disappointment. And you wonder, why do I still feel this way? Because part of you is still chasing the love you never received, still trying to prove that you're finally enough, still hoping they'll wake up one day and see your heart. But here's the truth. You don't need to keep waiting. You don't need their permission to heal. Reclaiming your worth from the inside out. What if you gave yourself what they couldn't give? What if you looked in the mirror and said, I'm proud of you. I see how hard you've worked to become who you are. I know what you went through, and I love you. This is not about pretending you don't care. It's about grieving what you deserved but didn't get, and choosing to stop begging for scraps of love from people who never learned to love fully. Virginia Satir reminded us that true healing begins when we separate our inherent worth from how others treat us. You are not defined by their silence. You are not reduced by their lack of praise. You are already enough, even if they never say it out loud. The day you stop chasing, you start healing. There's power in acceptance. Not acceptance of the pain, but acceptance of the truth that they may never change, the truth that your worth was never in their hands, the truth that love, real love, should never have to be earned by proving your pain doesn't exist. When you stop chasing their validation, you begin to validate yourself. You begin to trust your own voice, your own heart, your own healing. Closure doesn't always come from them. You may never get the apology. You may never hear the words you needed. You may never feel seen by them. But you can choose something better. Peace. Peace that comes from no longer needing them to be different. Peace that says, I matter, even if they never understood me. Peace that allows you to build a life that feels like home, even if your family never was. Closing message. You don't have to wait anymore. You've waited long enough. You've hoped long enough. You've carried the weight of unmet expectations for too long. Now it's time. Time to turn inward, to nurture the child in you that's still waiting, to give them the love, the kindness, the encouragement they've craved all these years, because the one person you've always needed has always been you. You don't need to earn it. You don't need to prove it. You don't need to wait anymore. You are worthy. You are loved. You are enough, exactly as you are. Walking away isn't hate. It's emotional health. There's a common belief we're taught from a young age. If you truly love your family, you never walk away. It sounds noble, loyal, selfless, but sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to leave, not out of hate, not out of revenge, but because staying in pain, day after day, year after year, is no longer an option. Love doesn't mean endurance. We've confused love with endurance. We think love means putting up with everything, accepting mistreatment, swallowing pain, staying silent to keep the peace. But peace that costs your dignity isn't peace. It's submission. And love that demands your silence isn't love. It's control. Virginia Satir taught that healthy relationships allow room for growth, truth, and self-expression. When a relationship, any relationship, consistently stifles your spirit, it becomes emotional quicksand. And sometimes the only way to survive is to step out. But they're family, yes. And the word family does not give anyone a free pass to harm you. It does not give them the right to criticize, manipulate, shame, or belittle you. Blood may connect you biologically, but it does not define the quality of the relationship. Would you stay in a romantic relationship where you're constantly hurt, ignored, or gaslighted? then why stay in a family system that does the same just because it's family? Walking away doesn't make you cruel, it makes you conscious. The myth of the angry leaver. When you set boundaries or walk away, people may call you cold. They may say you're selfish, dramatic, unforgiving, but let's be honest. They're not mad because you walked away. They're mad because they lost control. They're mad because you're no longer available to absorb their chaos. Because you stopped apologizing for being hurt. Because you stopped pretending that dysfunction was love. You didn't walk away to hurt them. You walked away to stop hurting yourself. Distance is sometimes a form of protection. Not all relationships are meant to be fixed. Some are meant to be released. And when repair isn't possible, distance becomes medicine. That doesn't mean you hate them. It means you're choosing yourself. It means you're healing from patterns that were slowly killing your peace. Virginia Satir believed that we all have the right to define our emotional space, to choose who gets access to our hearts, to decide what kind of love we allow into our lives. You can still love them from a distance. Walking away doesn't erase love. In fact, for many people, it's because they love their family that they had to leave. Because staying meant losing themselves. Because staying meant modeling dysfunction for their own children. Because staying meant keeping the wound open forever. You can love someone and still choose to love them from a place where your soul is safe. You can forgive and still choose not to re-enter the fire that burned you. You can wish them well and still wish yourself something better. Letting go without guilt. Guilt is one of the hardest parts of setting boundaries. You may think, what if they think I'm heartless? What if I'm wrong? What if they change after I leave? Here's the truth. If you needed to abandon yourself to stay, it wasn't a healthy relationship. And if they truly wanted to change, they'd be doing the work, with or without you present. You are not abandoning them. You are returning to yourself. The right to choose emotional health. You have the right to walk away from what hurts you, even if it's family, especially if it's family. You have the right to build your own version of love, one where you are safe, seen, and supported. You have the right to stop explaining yourself to people who refuse to understand. And most of all, you have the right to put your healing first. Virginia Satir once said, "Every word, facial expression, gesture, or action on the part of a parent gives the child some message about self-worth. Now it's your turn to send a message to yourself. I matter. I deserve peace. I choose me." Closing message. Leaving is not hate, it's hope. Walking away is not hatred. It's not betrayal. It's not abandonment. It's the beginning of a new kind of love, one where you finally include yourself. So if you're standing at the edge, wondering whether you're allowed to choose peace, let this be your answer. Yes, you are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to rebuild your life. You are allowed to create space for healing, even if it means letting go of people you once thought you couldn't live without. You don't walk away because you hate them. You walk away because you finally love yourself. Rebuilding, creating bonds beyond blood. If walking away from your family left an empty space inside you, you're not alone. There's a kind of loneliness that follows when you release the people who were supposed to love you, the people who raised you, the people you were taught to cling to, no matter the cost. But here's something powerful to remember. You can still have family. You can still have love, connection, laughter, safety. It just might not come from where you expected. Family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's choice. We are born into families, but that doesn't mean we belong to them emotionally. Some people enter your life and feel more like home than your childhood house ever did. Some friends become your brothers. Some mentors feel like the parents you never had. Some communities become the arms that finally hold you without judgment. Virginia Satir believed that the human need for connection is universal, and it can be healed in new relationships, not just repaired in old ones. You don't need to force belonging where you've only felt rejection. You are allowed to build a family that feels like love. Healing doesn't happen in isolation. You don't have to go through this journey alone. One of the most damaging messages from toxic families is, don't trust anyone. Keep our secrets. No one will understand you. These messages isolate you. They keep you trapped in the belief that love must be endured, not enjoyed. But healing thrives in connection, in laughter shared over dinner, in honest conversations with people who listen, in the quiet reassurance that someone chooses you, not out of obligation, but out of care. Trust is a muscle. You rebuild after toxic family experiences. Trusting others can feel terrifying. You might flinch at kindness, doubt sincerity, push away those who come too close. Why? Because you were taught that love hurts, that closeness comes with a price. that eventually they'll leave or betray you too. But not everyone is your past. Some people will hold your heart gently. Some people will respect your boundaries. Some people will choose you, not because they have to, but because they want to. Virginia Satir believed that change happens in connection, in safe, healthy, warm environments where we're allowed to be real and still be loved. What real connection looks like. Let's redefine love together. Love doesn't demand silence. Love doesn't punish you for having needs. Love doesn't manipulate you through guilt. Love doesn't vanish when you stop performing. Instead, love listens. Love respects. Love forgives without control. Love shows up, even on hard days. And that kind of love exists. It may take time to find, but it's worth every step of the journey. Creating a family that sees you. You can create a family where your emotions aren't too much, where your dreams are celebrated, where your healing is supported, where you can breathe deeply, safely, freely. That family may be built from friends, or a partner, or a therapist, or even a pet that never leaves your side. You get to choose who sits at your table. You get to decide what love looks like. You get to create new traditions, new holidays, new definitions of home. Let go of the shame of needing connection. Sometimes, people feel embarrassed for needing love, for feeling lonely, for craving emotional safety after years of pretending they didn't. But there is no shame in wanting to be held, no shame in needing support, no shame in longing for family, even if it didn't come from your bloodline. Virginia Satir reminded us that the essence of being human is being seen and known, fully, deeply, and without fear. You deserve that, and you're allowed to seek it elsewhere. You're allowed to start over. It's never too late to make a friend who sees your soul, to reconnect with your body in spaces where you're safe, to experience love without conditions, to write a new story, one where you are no longer the outsider, but the author. You didn't get to choose your first family, but now you get to choose again. And this time, you choose people who choose you back. Closing message: you can build the love you never received. Maybe you didn't grow up with support, with encouragement, with warmth or understanding, but you are not doomed to stay there. You can create connection that heals the cracks left by your past. You can experience a love that softens what life made hard. You can build a chosen family where your existence isn't questioned, but celebrated. Remember this: you are not alone. You are not unlovable. You are not too broken to belong. You are worthy of building something beautiful from the ashes of what hurt you. And you can start today. The freedom to be yourself without asking for permission. What if one day you didn't have to explain who you are, didn't have to apologize for how you feel, didn't have to shrink to make others comfortable? What if your existence, just as it is, was finally enough? That's not a fantasy, that's freedom, and it's yours to reclaim. You were taught to disappear. Growing up in a toxic family often teaches one dangerous survival skill: hide who you really are. You may have learned to numb your emotions so you wouldn't be called dramatic, silence your voice to avoid conflict, change your interests to be accepted, question your own reality because it didn't match theirs. You became the version of yourself that they could tolerate, not the version of yourself that felt true. Virginia Satir believed that every person has a core self, a unique identity that longs to emerge. But when that self is constantly suppressed, the result is inner conflict, anxiety, and disconnection. The fear of being seen. After years of performing, the idea of being fully seen might terrify you. You may ask, what if they don't like the real me? What if I disappoint people? What if I lose relationships if I stop pleasing everyone? But let me ask you this: what do you lose by not being yourself? Every time you dim your light to make others comfortable, every time you bite your tongue to avoid judgment, every time you agree to things that hurt your soul, you abandon you. The power of authenticity. Authenticity isn't loud. It's not rebellion. It's not aggression. It's quiet self-ownership. It's the ability to say, this is what I feel. This is what I need. This is who I am. Even if no one claps for it. Even if it goes against the family narrative. Even if it makes others uncomfortable. Virginia Satir believed that when people live in congruence, where their inner truth matches their outer expression, they become whole. That's what you're walking toward now. Wholeness. No more permission slips. You no longer need their permission to have boundaries, change your mind, feel joy. Say no, rest, exist. You've spent long enough trying to earn what should have been yours by birthright, the right to be fully, unapologetically yourself. You get to choose your identity. You are not your trauma. You are not your role in the family. You are not what they said about you when you were too young to fight back. You are a soul in process, a person with power, a story that's still unfolding. And you get to decide what chapter comes next, not them. You get to write the narrative. You get to define what love means. You get to become someone new, even if your past family never allows you to outgrow the box they built for you. Being yourself may cost you, but staying small costs more. Let's be honest. When you start living in truth, not everyone will come with you. Some people will reject you. Some will say you've changed. Some will try to pull you back into the roles they're comfortable with. But ask yourself, is it worth trading your peace for their approval? Is it worth staying small so they won't feel insecure? You didn't survive all that pain just to live a life of pretending. You're not here to play a part. You're here to live. Freedom starts with one brave step. Being yourself doesn't require a dramatic announcement. It starts quietly, saying no to what drains you, saying yes to what lights you up, wearing what you like, speaking how you speak, feeling what you feel, and not apologizing for it. These are acts of liberation. Each time you show up as your real self, you send a message to your inner child. You're safe now. You don't have to hide anymore. We are free. Closing message. You don't need to ask anymore for too long. You waited for permission to speak, to rest, to leave, to be. But now it's yours to give. You no longer need their approval to breathe deeply. You no longer need their blessing to become who you truly are. You get to exist without explanation. You get to shine without guilt. You get to live a life that reflects your truth, not their expectations. And in that freedom, you don't just survive, you come alive. You don't have to carry this pain forever. Let's pause here for a moment. Take a deep breath in, out. Feel that? That's the space between who you were told to be and who you're becoming. You've carried too much for too long. You've carried guilt that never belonged to you. You've carried silence that protected everyone but you. You've carried roles, expectations, wounds, and masks, all to survive in a family that didn't see you. But survival is not the same as living. And now it's time to decide. Do I want to carry this pain for the rest of my life, or do I want to begin letting it go? You did the best you could with what you had before you knew better. You did what you had to do. You stayed quiet to keep the peace. You took the blame to avoid rejection. You molded yourself into the good child, the peacemaker, the invisible one, the strong one. You did what it took to survive. Virginia Satir taught that every behavior, even the ones that look unhealthy from the outside, was once a creative attempt to meet a deep need. So before anything else, honor the version of you that survived. They got you here, but now you're safe. And survival is no longer the only option. It's okay to let go. Let go of the need to be understood by those who refuse to listen. Let go of the belief that love must come with pain. Let go of the habit of proving, explaining, begging. You do not need their permission to move on. You do not need their apology to begin healing. Closure may never come from them, but peace can come from you. You are not the pain you inherited. Your family's dysfunction is not your destiny. Your parents' silence is not your identity. Your childhood wounds are not your future. You are not what they did to you. You are not the voice that shamed you. You are not the fear that kept you small. You are what you choose to become next. You are healing. You are transforming. You are rising. Freedom isn't the absence of pain. It's the presence of truth. You may still have hard days, triggers, tears that come out of nowhere, loneliness that sneaks in at night. That doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're human. It means you're finally feeling what you were never allowed to feel before. And that is the beginning of true freedom. Virginia Satir believed that every person has the internal power to grow, to shift, to heal, and that when we embrace our full truth, we become fully alive. This is your new beginning. The moment you stop carrying their pain is the moment you begin writing your own story. A story where you are allowed to rest. You are allowed to be messy. You are allowed to be loved for who you are, not who you pretend to be. A story where you become the parent, the partner, the friend, the human you needed all along. You are not doomed to repeat the past. You are allowed to begin again. You were never meant to carry it alone. If no one ever told you, I'm sorry you were hurt. I'm sorry they couldn't love you better. I'm sorry you had to be the strong one for everyone else. Please hear it now. I see you. I believe you. And I know how much it cost you to make it this far, but you did. And now you get to rest. You get to rebuild. You get to live. Closing message. This pain ends with you. You didn't choose your family. You didn't choose their pain. You didn't choose the silence, the shame, pain, the struggle, but you do get to choose what happens next. You get to choose love, you get to choose truth, you get to choose peace, you get to choose you. And the moment you make that choice, the moment you stop carrying what was never yours, you become free, not perfect, not healed overnight, but free to live in alignment with your truth, free to love without fear, free to become the person you were always meant to be. You don't have to carry this pain forever. You've carried enough. Now, it's time to begin again.